Chair calls the Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District Board meeting to order. Can we please bow our heads for a moment of silent prayer? Amen. Can I get a motion to amend the agenda to add under 4.2, Dr. Martin, district data presentation? It has been motioned and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda. It has been motioned and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Superintendent's report. COVID-19 updates. For the month of January, there were 121 students and 96 positive staff cases of COVID-19 reported in the district. As of today, there are 4,112 students enrolled in the Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District. The district hosted its 2021-2022 Science Fair on January 19th of 2022. There were 237 participants. 4.5-week assessments are being administered this week in the district. This concludes the superintendent's report.
Chair will entertain a motion to accept the superintendent's report. It has been motioned and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Next, we have our school at risk report for East Elementary and our additional targeted support and interventions report for Floyd County Elementary. Dr. Pulley.
This information was shared at the work session. These two schools are working extremely hard with the resources, the additional instructional support that teachers are receiving, students are receiving, and the instructional leaders are receiving to improve student achievement. And so we are looking forward to analyze the 4.5-week assessments that's being administered this week, and we'll definitely provide those updates when we have them. Dr. Brown.
Next, we have a 16th section land report, Mr. Mike Ainsworth.
On the agenda because we did have a couple of phone calls about it. And the last item on 16th section report is removal of the building. This is going to be, you'll see the street address, 1208 4 Avenue. Pass
Mr. Johnson, have we seen this piece of property?
Yes, it's located off Leflore Avenue. That's property that
Okay, I can't hear what you're saying.
I don't have the sheet listed, I don't have that one, that particular sheet, but I'm assuming it's the one off Leflore Avenue. Is that the address that's on there?
I'm saying, is this our first time hearing about this piece of property?
Yes, it's a lot that's actually had been abandoned. Somebody inquired because they wanted some trees cut down on that particular property. And we went out to look at the trees to be cut down because it is a district property. That house was there and it's been abandoned. So the question came, that we have to do something. The district is responsible for that property and is upkeep at this point. So we can either try to seek to sell the house, to have it moved off the property, demolition the house, clear off the land, or just try to put it back out to be leased, the site itself.
Any questions, board members, about that piece of property?
If I could interject one thing on that particular section. That's the section, and remember we went over and we basically showed you the number of leases that were out there on 99-year contracts. That's the section, okay?
Okay.
So, and those, like I said, all those contracts expire around 2046.
Okay. You talking about the bottom one? We've seen TY before. How many times have we seen TY? Yeah, but did
Two
yeah,
different
that's
issues.
two different things.
T.Y. Fleming is one decision to be made about whether you want to advertise that for sale. And this other 1208 Leflore Avenue, I think you would probably need to kind of get some idea of what it would take to be able to take that dwelling down, or is there any value to the dwelling that sits on the property? We can find somebody interested in purchasing the old abandoned house.
So would the district have to get an appraisal on it? Or?
Well, if you're going to sell the house, then it probably would need an appraisal.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like we went back to that T.Y. Fleming building. We're going to find somebody to appraise it for us.
Mm-hmm.
But, Mr. Johnson, what kind of condition was the house in? I mean, it's probably.
It would need some repairs. It would need some things done to it prior to if it was, I guess, gonna lease it. Now, someone may be interested in walk through, sell it, maybe move it off the property, but I guess that'll just be depending on if a person is interested. And I personally think that we should could at least advertise it to see what the interest is of the property, because it's been sitting there for quite some time now. And if we don't do anything, it's gonna continue to sit there. And I know we did get a quote on the demolition, and I wanna say Ms. Washington, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was about somewhere between 11 and 15,000 just to demo it and clean off the site. So I would think that we could try to see if we could possibly find somebody interested in taking it and moving it rather than, because we would have to put money into it one way or the other, either demo it or fix it up to lease it out.
So, board members, what would your pleasure be on the one on the floor?
All right, we'll see us, at least try to get some type of appraisal done on it to give us some idea of what it might be worth.
Madam President, I would like to see what the property looks like. I mean, if that's a photo being emailed to us.
So would y'all be in favor of tabling the last one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, we'll just table the last
What
one.
about asbestos? Do you
Now,
know if asbestos or anything like that?
not to my knowledge, but not to say that it isn't, but not to my knowledge that it is. I think Ms. Washington do have pictures.
I do have a few pictures now. They probably need some better pictures, but to me, looking at the house, and that's not a whole lot of value, but it looks like it's worth, it'll be more cost effective for the district to either sell it or fix it and lease it, because if you clean that
Chair will entertain a motion to, lease contract to Mark Claudy, 1621 North 1 East Brayley Campsite, Lot 29, renting for $300 plus $150 processing fee.
So moved. Second.
It has been motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Chair will entertain a motion to lease contract to Mark Claudy for 1621 Northeast 1 East Brayley Campsite, Lot 20. Fair market rent $300 plus $150 processing fee.
So moved. Second.
It has been motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Chair will entertain a motion to advertise T.Y. Fleming Building and surplus property identified at 21-22 North-1 West.
So moved.
It has been motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Board members, would you like to table this last item, or would you like to advertise buyer as is? Dr. Moore made a motion. Is there a second? It's been motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Ainsworth.
Thank you. Mr. Capitola, we had one more item for discussion. It won't hopefully take very long.
Board members, if you can recall the last board meeting that Mr. Ainsworth was here, he had asked me to contact Mr. Bill Cheney at the Secretary of State's office regarding some, there was a dispute between an agricultural lessee and a hunting and fishing lessee. And after speaking with Mr. Cheney, he did send to me and to Mr. Ainsworth an email regarding his advice regarding the issue. And he stated that a lessee may not assign, authorize, convey, grant, sell, or sublease the hunting and fishing privileges to another. And the issue, as I understand it, Mr. Ainsworth, was that the long and short of it is only the lessee and members of his household can use the property, not someone else coming in to hunt on the land. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so the dispute is this particular farmer has allowed family members to hunt what's in the open area where actually the cropland is that he's already harvested. And the existing hunting and fishing leaseholder that has the timber rights that connects to the farmland, they're upset because they're coming into the timber portion of the hunt, and while they're doing so, the agricultural leaseholder and maybe a family member would be hunting in the area that's being farmed. Now, I mean, that's the gist of what we've got. And until an AG opinion that comes out any different, that would give any legal grounds for that farmer not to do so, he's really not in any violation of the lease.
Any questions or discussions, board members? All right. Thank you, Mr. Ainsworth. Board members, if you will look at your telephones, I share with you a text message that Ms. Washington gave me, a picture of the house on Leflore Avenue. So for those of you who would like to see the house, it is on your text message. Dr. Moore? Yes.
The only other thing I was gonna say, if y'all wanted to go and view the property, let me know when y'all would like to actually walk through it and sit there.
Okay. So board members, before we leave, if you would like to see the property as a whole or as individuals, please let Mr. Johnson know before we leave. At this time, we will have Dr. Martin with Mississippi School Board Association to come and give us a report on our district data. Trying to get the mic.
Okay, good. To share with you what I have done here in the slides you're fixing to see, board members, you have three pieces of information. One is Greenwood Public School District as it was and its scores in 16, 17, 18. Then you have Leflore County School District, and you have those scores. Then what I did is, and what you'll see in the slides, is I hypothesized if the district had been Greenwood Leflore Consolidated District all the way back to 2016. And so I disaggregated the data and then put it back together as if you were a consolidated district in 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19. Okay, so the data you're fixing to see is not from, so administrators in the room, well, that's not right, this is not data that you would see on the state website. This is me taking and hand figuring and doing the data from Greenwood and Leflore and then putting those together to show what it would look like, okay? Now, just a little, I don't even know why, if I need to even show this again. I showed it to the two board members earlier, but this is what happens when you don't use data. And I know that we've got administrators in the room, and I know you're doing a great job with your data. But many times we get busy, and COVID has caused us to be almost like herding cats, chasing everything in the world, and it's hard to focus. When we don't use data to drive our decisions, this is what happens. Can you see this guy? He's working really hard. Every district I know has people that are working really, really hard. And he's so proud of himself. And what ends up happening is we're doing a lot of work on somebody else's car because we're not letting it drive the decisions. So this is the first set of data you have. This is Greenwood School District and longitudinal data with it. And then here is Leflore County when it was a district and by school. And then here is Consolidated School District as district data. You were able, when the district was consolidated, you were able to take the higher of the two scores. And so officially, as a accountability rating, you're a C. But had you been a combined consolidated district in 2018-19, your actual score would have been a D. Okay, had you been combined. But you're not far. Okay, there's your numbers. That's the numbers game we all play in the accountability system. And Dr. Pulley and them, they know all of this. But so you are sitting there as a combined district, okay, at 519.5, which would round up to 520. And so you're only 16 points away from being a C as a combined district. Can you get 16 points? Yes, you can get 16 points, okay? But COVID, you'll see the effects of COVID have really hit, and they've hit everybody.
They've hit nationwide. They've hit every district in the state, and so you'll see that in these slides coming forward. Here's your district reading. This is proficiency. So this is your students that scored 4 and 5 in 3rd grade, all the way to 8th grade, all the way through 8th grade, and then English 2 in 10th grade. And so in 2016, 17%, you see it goes up to 21.2, 20.5. You didn't have scores in 2020, so that stays the same. Then COVID last year, down to 15. The next slide shows you compared with the state. And so if I was setting a goal, if I was an outsider coming in setting a goal, I would say proficiency-wise, you need to shoot for trying to reach the state average. If you reach the state average, you're going to be a very high C, pushing the envelope to become a B, okay, in proficiency. But you see the state dropped at about the same rate as the district dropped when you see those two lines. Math, this is your math proficiency. And you were higher in math in 2019, 30%. And then last year combined. Now, why is that? Well, because you know we're doing Common Core math. And when students learn to read, they don't forget how to read. But Common Core math, if mom and dad is having to be the teacher with them with Common Core math, that's going to be almost impossible. And so now the good thing about it is, and I'm sure that your benchmark data is showing this, that 5 has come way back up, and it's close to where you were at in 2019, 2020, or even higher. So the math scores took the bigger drop, but then also they're going to show the biggest gain coming out of it. And that's what that looks like compared to the state. The state is there at the top in the orange line. History. This is just U.S. history. This is just your 11th graders taking U.S. history. You see you rose to 36, and you stayed 36 across the board, and then last year with COVID, it dropped to 20.1. Compared to the state, you see your drop was a little bit steeper than the state's drop, but I think you're coming back up there as well. It is a new test. As of 2 years ago, it's a new test, so it's difficult. Here's science. Science, this score is from 5th grade science, 8th grade science, and biology. Those 3 scores combined to come up with your science score, and you were at 52 until COVID. Now what that tells me is if students can score 52% proficient on science, they can score higher than they're scoring in reading language arts and in math, but especially reading language arts, because the science test has a lot of reading. It's a lot of, and if they can score this high, 5th graders, 8th graders, 9th graders, then, and so compared with the state, you were close to the state average in 18-19. The state average was 55.3, and you were at 52. Now we get to growth. And growth is 40% of the model. There's 1,000 points in the district score. In the accountability score, it's 1,000 points. 400 points of that is growth. So it's weighted heavily, heavily, heavily to growth. I will tell any district, if you take care of growth, proficiency will take care of itself. Okay? You do want kids to score 4s and 5s. Don't get me wrong. You want proficiency. But every parent wants their child to do what? Grow. No matter where they're at, if they're a special ed child that's a 1A, that parent wants them to grow to be a 1B. Okay? So growth, and if you take care of growth, it'll take care of proficiency. It's almost like Nick Saban with his process. He tells his players, don't look at the scoreboard, don't worry about the scoreboard, play the play, run the dues, do everything we say, follow the process, and the score will take care of itself. Growth is the same way. Take care of growth, proficiency will move, proficiency will go up. So here's your district reading growth, and there it is compared to the state. So you're close to the state average there. Of course, your drop was a little steeper than the state's. Math growth, big increase in 18 and in 19, and you're at the state average. So when I say your goal ought to be reaching the state average, you're doing that in lots of areas, so you can do that. Low growth. Board members, low growth is, we've already counted these kids once for growth in all growth. Now we rank order them by grade level or by subject area, so all fifth graders, every score in fifth grade, from the top score down to the bottom score, and we take the bottom 25%. So we know who those kids are from the year before, from their scores. They're identified as the bottom 25, the low quartile. And we're looking at those kids. Did those kids grow? What percent of that bottom quartile grew? And so a kid in that bottom quartile could help you 4 times or could hurt you 4 times. So if you've got a student that's in that bottom quartile that doesn't meet growth in reading and math, they're hurting you. They didn't meet proficiency, they didn't meet regular growth, and they didn't meet low growth. So they're actually hurting you 6 times in that model. Or the other side is, even though they're not proficient or advanced, they can help you if they meet growth 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So a lot of bang for your buck with the bottom 25. Here's your scores, 67.1, a slight drop in 2019. Compared to the state, you're right there at the state average. Statistically speaking, in 2019. Math low growth, whoops, there you are. And again, this is not Greenwood numbers, this is not Leflore numbers, this is combined if you were combined district. And there you are, you were actually above the state average in 18 and 19. Readiness. Readiness, this is your ACT component. This is the percent of students that meet the benchmarks on the ACT test. And this is an area of need for the district, is that. It's an area of weakness. You were 18, 19%, and then we dropped, and compared to the state. And so, you know, it's hard. I know it's riding 2 different horses at the same time. We've got state tests over here that we're supposed to be teaching Algebra 1 and U.S. History and English 2. And then at the same time, we're supposed to be working on ACT. But ACT is the only test that if a kid scores a 24 or higher, really starts at 21, but a 24 for sure, they get what? Money. So it has a tangible reward for students, and if their ACT scores go up, their state test scores are going to go up as well. Acceleration, this is a celebration part for you. It did drop last year with COVID like everything else, but 55%, you see that needle going up. Acceleration is, this is your dual credit. This is your CTE certifications. This is your AP. This is students, doing those things. And so acceleration was a good thing for you, and you continue that growth, get back to that 55 and keep it going higher. And you're close to the state average there until COVID hit. Graduation rate. Now we know that graduation rate in 20 and 21 is a little, everywhere in the state, is a little elevated. It's a little, why? Because kids were given a reprieve. They didn't have to pass the state test in order to graduate, so it's inflated. This year, that's gone, and so look for that number, but that's a good trend, Okay, that's a good trend. You were going up even before that happened. You were at 72, you went to 77, so you're headed in the right direction, but just everywhere in the state, look for that. That's going to drop this next year because now students have to pass those tests again. And you were actually above the state average on graduation rate. ACT scores, this is not Greenwood, this is not Leflore, this is combined. I took the scores, and that's what it would have been if it had been combined across the board for those years. Average ACT scores. And this is the one that kind of scares me a little bit. This is your enrollment. From 16-17, you were at 51-33. And last year, you were down to 41-61, which is 972 students that you've lost. And then on the right side, when it says total teachers, that's not really teachers, that's instructional personnel. So it's not just teachers, it's instructional personnel from the state reports. But you've gone from 366 to 351, you've lost 972 students, but you've only cut 15 instructional staff. So that's going to come back to bite you at some point if it's not looked at, okay? Because students equal money, and when you're losing that, here's the staggering part, and nobody likes to see this slide, but it's the truth. We have to look in the mirror. Every district, every organization is perfectly designed to get the results that it gets. So if you don't like the scores, you don't like what you're seeing, we've got to do something different. Now that doesn't mean COVID is a huge factor in this. And so COVID has thrown everybody to the wind. But hopefully we've gotten kids back in school this year. We've had disruptions. Yes, we've had disruptions. We've had all these things. But hopefully, you're going to see things going back up in a positive projection. What I mean by that, though, is everywhere. And I use Clinton as my frame of reference because that's where all my career was at. We know how to do school. We've been doing school for 200 years. We know how to ring bells. We know how to schedule. We know how to have class. But in order for us to meet the needs of kids, especially after COVID and going forward, we can't do school the way we've always done school. We're going to have to think out of the box and do things differently in order to make the needle move like it needs to move. If we just have school like we've always had school, we're going to keep getting the same results over and over. At the end of the day, you want your accountability to be a physical, not an autopsy. And I know that you in this district, Dr. Pulley, I know y'all do this, where you're using your benchmark data and you're looking at that. That's your physical. You don't just wait till the end and it's an autopsy and you can't do anything about it. Okay? And so, use your data that you have. I'm going to skip these two slides. You have more data. Your superintendent and your district people, they've got more data than they know what to do with. We are, any district, we are in danger of having the drip syndrome. Data rich, but information poor. We got more numbers and we know what to do with. The key is we've got to turn the numbers we have into usable information. And so data is not information. It's just numbers. It must be transformed into information. Well, how do we do that? We have to put it in context. So, Dr. Bailey, I'm going to pick on you again. Let's say Dr. Bailey is a 4th grade student this year. No, I'm going to make you a 5th grade. He's a 5th grade student this year. And he scores on the state test in reading, he scores a 2A. Now, if I just look at that score in and of itself, a 2A, I'm going to say, well, he can do better than that. We got issues. But I need to look at his context and say, what did he make on the 4th grade test? What did he make on the 3rd grade test? And if I see in 4th grade he made a 4, and in 3rd grade he made a 4, a 4, a 4, now a 2A, well, I really get worried now, don't I? But I still need to, what happened? I look a little deeper. Maybe Dr. Bailey had a death in the family. He had something going on. Maybe there was something, trauma, whatever, COVID, whatever. That's one thing. But maybe not. What if I find that there are 10 other Dr. Baileys in the same class that I see the same thing happen to them? They were a 4 and a 4 and now a 2A. Then I got to look, okay, wait a minute. Who were their teachers? So then I got to dig and say, well, who were their 3rd grade teachers? Who was their 4th grade teacher? Who was their 5th grade teacher? If they scored really high, and now low, well, is it the teacher's fault? Not necessarily. I got to look deeper. I got to put that in context. Because I got to look at their teacher and say, well, maybe that teacher was out on maternity leave this year. So she missed a half the year. That's an answer. If she didn't, I got to look at that teacher's scores. When? For the last year, and the year before, and the year before. I got to put it in context. Once I put it in context and I see patterns, now I can make some decisions. Now the data won't lie because it's in context. But data and information always needs to make us do something. Okay? We can't just get the facts and just, okay. We got to do something with it. And it makes us have actions. This is something that I put in here. This is from Clinton. We stole it from JPS. I'm all about stealing things. Okay? The way I say it is, if you steal from one person, that's called plagiarism. If you steal from multiple people, that's called research. And so I'm all about research. Okay? And Jackson Public Schools had the Stutsky Foundation come in and do all this training with them, and then they don't even use this anymore. Well, we incorporated it about 12 years ago in Clinton, and boy, we use it. And it's a flow-through chart, and it just shows how it never ends. You're taking your data, you're disaggregating it, you're doing things here, and then we take more tests, and we start it over, and we start it over, and we start it over, and it keeps going. Once we get through with that, we meet with each principal. And the assistant superintendent, who I was for 14 years, and the superintendent, we meet with each principal. And the principal has to come up with student achievement goals. Based on what? Based on their data. What were your strengths? What were your weaknesses? What are you going to work on this year? And that becomes the basis for their evaluation this next year. I know we have a growth rubric that we're supposed to use, but that becomes the basis of their student achievement. Then the principals turn around and they meet with teachers. And so we use this right here so that if I was a 4th grade language arts teacher, and there's 6 of us, 6 4th grade language arts teachers, I want to know what our scores would have been if you had been the only 4th grade language arts teacher. So what I do is I put the math scores in from the school. I put your scores in for the language arts, and I give you an accountability rating. And it brings it to the teacher level. Then the teacher has to set a classroom goal. Same thing the principal does. Strengths, weaknesses, and for their class. And that becomes the basis for what? For their evaluation. The teacher has to identify their movers and their shakers. A mover is a kid who's at the top of a score range. He's 1 point from moving from 3A to 3B. That's a mover. I need to know who that kid is, and I need to push him. A shaker is a kid who's at the bottom of one of those ranges, and if I don't push him, he could drop and hurt me. Okay? I need to identify who those kids are. If I'm a classroom teacher and I've got 25 kids, I need to know who my movers and shakers are and push them all year long. And then we meet with students. You got to get the students involved. We have one of these for every student from 3rd grade all the way through the high school. And teachers meet with those students and set a goal for each individual student. What was your score last year? And this year we need you to be here. We take the first benchmark in December, case 21, and we ask that question. Did you meet your goal? If they met it, yes, and we celebrate. If they didn't meet it, we don't say no. We say what? Not yet, because there's still time. There's still time to push you. When you put this in place, it makes the students have skin in the game, okay? And they can see, and kids are competitive, and they'll get involved. Your little ones, especially 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, they'll want to be pushing the envelope to do that. 2 critical questions. Is your instruction aligned with the curriculum? Is curriculum aligned with assessment? And are you using formative assessment for reteaching, or is it just used to get grades? I was guilty of that as a teacher. You know, it's the 4th week of a 9-week, and all of a sudden I look at my grade book and we don't have a test score, we don't have a test grade, and I make an announcement. We got a test next week. Whether they were ready for a test or not, I needed a test grade. Well, you give a test when they need a test, when they're ready for a test, not just because you need a grade. I go back to that. Every organization is perfectly aligned to get the results it gets. Questions?
Dr. Martin, you spoke about, and I'm going back to that chart that has total student enrollment, where our enrollment fell, for student enrollment. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? I have some notes here on the side.
What I did was I went to the superintendent's report that's publicly available on the MDEs. And so the superintendent's report, I took the total enrollment for 16-17 for Greenwood. I took the total enrollment for Leflore, and I combined them. And then there's another, on that same superintendent's report, it says total instructional personnel. That includes teachers, counselors, central office, that includes everybody, instructional personnel. And I combined those 2 numbers. And so that's the numbers you see. So if you were a combined district in 16-17, Greenwood Leflore Consolidated would have had 5,133 students. Last year, you had 44,161 students. And so that's 972 less students. But then on the right side, you still have 351 instructional personnel. I was saying you've only had a reduction of 15 there when you've had 972 less students. If you can afford that many personnel, hallelujah. That reduces class size, that helps everything. But sooner or later, what happened to us in Clinton? And I'll just share Clinton's story with you because I was a part of it. It was the worst day of my life other than having to go to my mother's funeral. When I came to Clinton Public School District in 1998, we had 5,200 students in the district. 10 years later, 2008, we were down to 4,600 students. Okay? So 600 students less. We still had the same number of teachers and everybody in place as we did for 5,200 students. We hadn't cut anybody. And I'm not saying people just losing their job. I'm just talking about with attrition even. Somebody retiring, We replaced the position. We did it. Well, what happened in 2008? The Great Recession. And we got hammered, and we had to cut $3 million out of our budget in one fell swoop. We cut 25 teachers in one day. We started the week before spring break, and Dr. Birchfield and I went and we met with 25 teachers who had done nothing to deserve it, nothing wrong. They were great people. But using the reduction in force policy, we had to cut 25 teachers because of budget. That's what I'm saying, is that if something catastrophic happens and you're losing money, because each one of those students you lose is $8,000, $9,000 per student that you're getting, that could happen.
How much are students, Madam President, if I may, how much are students, what's the total cost per student now, Ms. Washington?
It's over 4,100.
Ma'am?
4,100 is over 4,100.
You said reimbursement. Cost per student.
She said over 4,100.
Over 41.
And when I say that's the one that scares me, I'm just saying it fiscally.
Any other questions, board members?
I had one more question, Madam President, if I may. Indicator 12, where it talks about acceleration, and you spoke of CTE, AP dual credit. Can you elaborate on that a little more? Or you went as far as you could go? So how is that a part of the accreditation process or those process standards?
In the accountability model, you get up to 50 points in the model with your acceleration. And so part of it, 50% of it, is participation. It's the percent of students taking those courses or being involved in those. And then the other 50% is their performance. It's them scoring a 3 or higher on AP, or getting an industry certification, or scoring a C or higher on a dual credit course. So half of it is participation, half of it is performance, and those come together to give you up to 50 points. The other 50 points from that is your readiness score, which is your ACT. So that makes up 100 block, 50 for acceleration and 50 for college and career readiness.
Thank you.
You end up having 1,000 points in the model as a high school or a district. At the elementary level, you have 700 points, but at the high school, you have 1,000 points. But out of that 1,000 points, 400 of those 1,000 are growth. So 40% of the model deals with growth. And that's why I say if you take care of growth, you take care of proficiency. You take care of everything else. If students are growing academically, they're getting better, that's what you want. That's what every parent wants.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for letting me share with you tonight, and I hope I didn't take up too much of your time, but thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Dr. Brown.
Next, you have approval of revised school board policy Bcbd. Pages 12 through 14.
Any other questions about the board policy, board members? All right, Dr. Brown.
The Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District's Board of Trustees is requesting to suspend Board Policy BDC, Board Policy Adoption, in order to immediately approve the revision of Board Policy Bcbd Board Meeting Agenda.
Attorney Pullitt, Can you look at their recommendation?
Yes. This is the policy that, I think Ms. Milton,
Yeah, I'm
requested.
saying, but is the recommendation worded correctly?
It needs to read that the superintendent recommends, the suspension of the policies. Is reading that the board is requesting, but it needs to read as all the other recommendations where the superintendent recommends, that the policy be revised.
The Greenwood Leflore, the superintendent is requesting to suspend board policy BDC, board policy adoption, in order to immediately approve the revision of board policy Bcbd board meeting agenda.
Chair will entertain a motion to suspend board policy BDC, board policy adoption, in order to immediately approve the revision of board policy Bcbd board meeting agenda. It has been motioned and second. All in favor? Any opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Let the record show Dr. Roshan Bailey voting nay. Dr. Brown.
Approval of the 2022-2023 school district calendar. Mr. Johnson.
Attached is a copy of the proposed 2022-2023 school calendar. Back and staff will provide two calendar options, and the majority selected the attached calendar that you will find on page 16. You also have other attachments that shows the work calendar and the actual voting that took place.
Any questions, board members? Ms. Flowers, if you don't mind, like on these pages from 15 to 23, if you could do them front and back so we could just say on our paper from now on, if you don't mind. Chair, Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends school board approval of the 2022-2023 school district calendar as presented.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the 2022-2023 school district calendar as presented. Second. It has been motioned and second. All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Approval of mileage reimbursement rates. Mr. Johnson.
Attached are vehicle mileage reimbursement rates that went into effect January 1st, 2022, with also updated travel and reimbursement forms for the district. What you have attached is a memo from the state showing that mileage increase. It went from 0.545 to 0.585. And those are reflected on your updated request for travel and updated reimbursement for travel.
Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the attached new mileage reimbursement rate forms.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the attached new mileage reimbursement rate forms.
Second.
It has been motioned and second. All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Permission to remove food service equipment from inventory to sale. Mr. Johnson.
The Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District's Food Service Department is requesting permission to remove the listed items from inventory to sale. The equipment listed below are operational but were updated for more efficient equipment. And so you have those items below, and you also have the request sheet that was provided for food service. And those are the estimated cost values.
Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends that the school board grant permission to remove the listed items from inventory to grant permission to sale.
Chair will entertain a motion to grant permission to remove the listed items from inventory and grant permission to sale.
So moved.
The motion is second. All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Approval to submit reimbursement requests for bus drivers and/or aides for the Special Olympics. Dr. Pulley.
To support the sports training for the Unified Cheer and Unified Basketball teams that are a part of Special Olympics Mississippi, the following schools drivers on the attached page may submit for reimbursement of travel costs associated with transportation to and from the cheer and basketball practices, and the name is listed.
Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends school board approval to submit reimbursement requests for bus drivers and bus aides to the Special Olympics Mississippi.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve to submit reimbursement requests.
Excuse me, Madam President, ask a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Is there, how many adults would be with these kids, these children?
There are, right now, there will be, including the bus driver, there will be 3 adults,
Okay.
and yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve to submit reimbursement requests for bus drivers and bus aides to the Special Olympics Mississippi.
So moved.
There's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Approval of inventory removal of Chromebooks. Dr. Pulley.
The Chromebooks on the attached list were damaged and sent to the Claims Center for repair. The Claims Center determined the value to repair the devices would surpass the cost to purchase the new devices. The company mailed checks for 14 devices between December 6, 2021 through January 20, 2022, totaling $1,730.40. The Chromebooks and payment were verified by the technology supervisor.
Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the removal of the Chromebooks from the attached inventory list.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the removal of the Chromebooks from the attached inventory list.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Approval of educator in residence. Dr. Pulley.
The school district is seeking approval to submit the educator in residence application to the Mississippi Department of Education. This grant will support the position of K through 3 literacy coach. If selected, this person will provide support to assigned literacy coaches and to assigned schools to ensure that there can be a cohesive, sustained, intensive, and classroom-focused approach to literacy around the 5 components of reading.
Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends school board approval to submit the application for educator in residence.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve to submit the application for educator in residence.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Approval of Reach Mississippi Memorandums of Understanding. Dr. Pulley.
The district-wide positive behavior program is designed to minimize behaviors and infractions that occur in schools to increase student achievement. Reach Mississippi is proud to announce the opportunity for the schools and the districts to participate in a new P12 cohort. This opportunity will reward the schools 5 years of additional funding to continue some of the past efforts of Reach Mississippi and to begin new efforts. Each school will receive $375 per quarter. To ensure compliance with Reach Mississippi, the MOUs for each school require approval. Money will be distributed based on the completion of specific criteria.
Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends school board approval of Reach Mississippi Memorandums of Understanding for each school in the district.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve Reach Mississippi MOU for each school in the district.
So moved. Second.
It has been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Next, you have your monthly financial reports. Mrs. Washington.
Good afternoon. Before you, we have the attached financial reports for the month ending December 2021. The following reports are attached: the cash balance report, fund balance report, with status report, cash flow statements, the bank reconciliation reports, and the claim documentation
show me what page, would the MSBA, be on for February?
That's for the.
Pardon me? I said, could you show me in the report what page that's on? For the board members, for the February MSBA meeting, could you tell me what page that's on?
Page 216. Look at count, claim 950686. That's the hotel. What, did you want, which one are you looking for? Just that one or?
Yeah, I see where it's the, annual conference. So I'm looking for the actual conference itself, do you? Cause I know that's not it on, 950685. I'm looking for the fee for all 5. Is that it?
Oh, that would be just the room.
No, I'm looking for the actual, you know what I'm talking about, Ms. Flowers? The actual, yeah.
Now, I do know normally the MSBA, will give us an invoice. So we wait to get the invoice for that.
Okay. All right, that's what I was looking for. Any other questions, board members? Dr. Bailey, you not going?
Attending virtually.
Any other questions, board members? Okay, Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the November financial reports and the payment of claims 950546 through 950755.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the November financial report and payment of claims 950546 through 950755.
Second.
It has been motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Next, you have the consent agenda, which includes minutes of the special call board meeting of Tuesday, January 11, 2022, minutes of the regular board meeting of Tuesday, January 11, 2022, minutes of the special call board meeting of Friday, January 21st of 2022, and minutes of the work session of Wednesday, January 26th of 2022.
Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends approval of the consent agenda.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been motioned and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Dr. Brown.
Next, you have consideration of executive session.
Chair will entertain a motion to close this meeting for consideration of executive session. It has been motion and second, all in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. Board members, if we could, go to the other room, and our attorney will come back and give you our decision. Before we do that, could you help me, Attorney Pulley? Because I don't know how this got left off, I guess. I'm just gonna, how do we do, I need to amend the agenda to put the contract for the attorney on here.
You may amend the agenda at any time.
Board members, Chair will entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add contract for board attorney.
Question, Madam President.
Go ahead.
Just for clarification, the board just adopted a policy that would speaks against it unless I'm incorrect.
That will speak against what?
Adding something to the agenda outside of adoption of the agenda. Again, just for clarification, I could be incorrect.
I know in the past that we have added matters to the agenda. AG's opinion will state that you may amend the agenda at any time. I do understand what Dr. Bailey is saying, that the agenda was amended in the beginning of the meeting, and the adoption, it was adopted.
No problem, we'll call another special call. Thank you, board members.
board has voted to go into executive session to discuss the superintendent's evaluation. called an executive session. The board took no action.
Okay, Dr. Brown.
Page 298, personnel recommendations. Attached is a list of district personnel which requires school board approval.
Question, Madam
Go
President.
ahead, Dr. Morris.
Dr. Brown, will all of these be, denoted as just regular substitutes? Will any of them be pulled for long-term subs?
Yes, ma'am. If needed, we'll pull them for long-term, permanent subs, and then we'll bring them back before the board. We do have one permanent sub actually listed on the
Right.
front page. Yes, ma'am.
That's why I was asking, because I didn't see but one of those, and then.
And we also had two individuals, that we initially brought through as, subs, but were eligible to get their, licenses. So we brought them back across during the special call, and we have applied for their licenses. But if we need permanent subs, we'll bring them back before the board, for permanent sub
One
placement.
on this back page.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Brown.
The superintendent recommends school board approval of the 2021-2022 personnel list on the attached sheet.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the 21-22 personnel list on the attached pages. It has been motioned and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried. Chair will entertain, and can you please, Ms. Flowers, let the record show that Dr. Bailey left early. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been motioned and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion is carried.